Hi, my name's Fred. I drink beer, and welcome to this episode of Beers from the Basement. Today may be a short session or a marathon session. I'm not really sure. I'm calling it Accidentally Aged 2, the Germans. I have a whole bunch of German beers, possibly one Czech, that I didn't intend to age, and we'll see how they go. If they're drinkable, we'll go quickly. If they're not drinkable, it'll go quickly. If they're drinkable, it may take longer, and I may split this into 2 episodes. So anyway, I'm going to start off with the oldest and the lowest alcohol. I have a Berliner Weisse from Berliner Kindl Brewery. It has a best by date, and probably can't see that, it has a best by date of best before the end of October 99. I don't remember the alcohol in this, probably doesn't say, it's like 3%, 3.2%. So it isn't normally one you'd think about aging, but it got stuck behind something. I vaguely remember buying it. So we'll see. So there was a little bit of hiss. And this is not your traditional glass, but it's a Berliner Kindl Weisse glass. So we'll see how it goes. Pour it kind of rough. There's a fair amount of carbonation. A little more gentle here. I'm not sure what there are on floaties. This is a glass I've never used before, so I guess I didn't do a good job of cleaning it, but interesting. It brings up an age-old question. How do you tell when a Berliner Weisse is spoiled? It tastes good. So, if you can see the color, it's maybe it's darker than I would expect. I say it's very carbonated, which is also what I would expect. The nose is sour, which is again what I would expect. Well, it's a little bit oxidized, but it's actually quite nice. Didn't do a good a job of cleaning as I probably should have. The beer is surprisingly good. I mean, the nose, I'm getting kind of a bready note and some acidity, some tartness, and in the flavor. It's definitely oxidized, and that detracts from it, but it's very it's recognizably a Berliner Weisse, and it's actually not all that bad. We'll see if I can, by the end of it, I may get tired. The oxidation really does detract from it. At some point, and the other interesting thing, this was imported by B United in Elmsford, New York, and I don't remember when I think they've since moved to Connecticut. So it is an old bottle. I don't remember buying it. It may have been given to me. And I should have done a little more research before doing this. But at some point, there were in recent times, 2 large breweries in Berlin, and at some point they merged, sometime in the 2000s. They merged, and I remember when I was there in, I say 2005 or 6, I didn't think the Berliner Weisse was all that good that we bought. And this I remember being is much better than I remembered. So I know at some point that things kind of went downhill. And I should not let you get by without telling you there is now a relatively new Berliner Weisse. I'm going to say brewery, and that's sort of in air quotes, in Berlin, called Schneeäule. And it's a funny word when you see it in English because it has 3 E's in the middle. Schnee is snow, and Eule is owl. So it's snowy owl. And they, and I'm not sure their current status because they're changing and expanding. They actually don't, from what I remember, my last trip to Berlin a couple years ago. At the time, they didn't have a brewery. They had wort made at one of the. There are a couple of sort of craft level contract thing where you can just go and rent the system for a day and make some beer, and then that wort is then transferred to their fermentory, I guess, instead of a brewery, where it is pitched with all kinds of weird organisms, and they make wonderful beer. They have a variety of versions. Their plain version, the sort of stock version, is called Marlene. They have a version that was made with some. There's not a lot of hops in Berliner Weisse, but there are some. They made one with American hops, and they called it Kennedy, staying on the Berlin theme. And they have a version made with ginger, which is, and I have to be careful because it was, I think, called Inge now, but they got into trouble because someone else had a beer called Inge. So I think it's Ingmar now. And I may have that reversed. And that one is just amazing. It's an alcoholic ginger ale, but it's just intense ginger. It's the most ginger it's like eating a slice of fresh ginger. And various other ones. They did a Bruno was sort of a sour brown ale, a little stronger, about 5%, and kind of tasted like an old Flanders brown, a sour Flanders brown. And they've done a lambic in collaboration with the Hertie Lambic Blendery, which is run by a German. In fact, that's an interesting. The head fermenter, I guess, at Schneeäule is a woman by the name of Ulrika, and the Hertie, the guy in charge of the blender at Hertie, is Ulrich. So it's an Uli and Uli beer, and that's always a good sign. The Berliner Weisse story is I had one sometime in the early 90s in Germany. I think it was probably in Heidelberg, visiting some friends. And the tradition is when you order it, it's red or green. Red is raspberry. They put a raspberry syrup in it, and the green they put a Woodruff syrup in it. And there's very sweet syrups to balance the very, very tartness of the beer, the acidity of the beer, and it makes it almost soda pop level. And it was okay, and but I didn't feel the need to have another. I think I had one of each. And then a few years later, and I think it was maybe '96, my first visit to Dusseldorf. I was taking a break from alt beer. Hard to understand. And it was a nice warm summer day, and I was walking along. And if you've been to the old town in Dusseldorf, the restaurants and bars all over, and they kind of spill onto the sidewalk. And so I just sat down at a random place, and on their chalkboard they had on the side, they said Berliner Weisse. So, okay, well, let me try one. when I first tried it, I was maybe a beginning home brewer and didn't understand the style. And this time in Düsseldorf, I was much more into beer, and so I wanted to taste one without the syrup. So I ordered a Berliner Weisse, and my German even then was even more limited than it is today. And she asked, red or green, rot oder grün, and I said neither. We just white. And she says, no, you have to order red or green. It's like, and I said, no, I just want it plain, without juice, without the syrup. And, she was like going to argue with me, and I finally went, I'm an American. So she brought it to me and kind of looked at me like I was crazy. And it was sour, and if you hadn't been drinking beers like Lambics from Belgium, you would have probably thought it was a spoiled beer and dumped it out. But so it's a bit of an acquired taste like that. But anyway, that was my first plain Berliner Weisse. And like I say, the next few I had in Berlin, I was not too impressed with, and that could be my changing taste. But from reading, I think the things went a bit downhill, and the breweries ended up merging, and they still made the beer, but they would pre-mix it. They would pre-mix the syrup, so it's basically became an alcopop, or today you might call it a seltzer, hard seltzer. Who knows? But it was sweet, and didn't much enjoy it. And then a few years ago, I stumbled across and this maybe was 2016 when I made the first return visit to Berlin in a while and got introduced to Schneider, and also learned a little bit about some of the history. I was having a beer with the local, and he said, well, I'll tell you, we'll have this. It was a Schneider. It was a collaboration they did with somebody. I don't remember the other brewery. It was very good, and he says, now, sort of look over to the side, and I'll tell you how it was in the old days. And I saw him kind of fiddle underneath the table, and he gave me the beer back. And what he had done is put a shot of caraway schnapps into it, which actually went quite nice. And he said the story was, there's not much alcohol in. Say it's I think in the old days it was 2%, and this may be 3%. So that's enough that you can drink. You can drink a couple at lunch, and you probably metabolize the alcohol almost as fast as you. Certainly in a short amount of time. But if it was after work and you wanted, something with a little more kick, you would put a big slug of schnapps into it, caraway schnapps, and that would up the alcohol and add to the flavor. So I don't have any caraway schnapps, or I would drop some in. Anyway, running on long here. If I'm doing, I may have to split this up into two episodes, because I have a whole bunch of beers to get through, and if they're all as good as this one, it'll take a long time. I sort of figured a bunch of them are going to be dumpers after the first taste, but we'll be back in a minute with the next beer. The next two beers are also wheat beers, so more Bavarian style. So we'll see you in a minute. Hi, I'm back with Accidental Aging to the Germans, and I'm sticking with wheat beers for now. The next one I have is a Schneider from Kelheim, originally in Munich, but moved to Kelheim during World War II, I think after their brewery was destroyed. This is the Weisen Edel Weisse. So Wiesen is the meadow where the Oktoberfest takes place, and this was a recreation of a former beer that was, I think, brewed in the 40s for the Oktoberfest. Now, I don't know how old this is. By the way, it is organic in 2 countries. It's USDA organic, and it's also certified organic by the German equivalent. 6.2% alcohol by volume. I believe it's from around 2010. They don't seem to have a date on it, but oh wait, no, it does have a. I'm sorry, this one does have a date. This is from 2007, I believe. The end of December 2007. So it's quite old, but it has been in the fridge for most of those years, so it just still might be okay. So we'll see. They say the cap is kind of rusty, and let's see what we get when we open it. There's a little bit of a fizz, and of course I have a Schneider glass. It's a small one, so, and it's got floaties. It's still carbonated. I'll be a little careful here. I don't have a lot of room. I haven't had this beer in a long. This is the one, by the way. I believe it eventually became. They would sell it as Tap 4. Now again, this is a glass I haven't used in a while. I did try and clean it, but boy, there's not any head left on that. That could be the glass. Yeah, this one. This one, unfortunately, is going to be a. I'm going to water the plants. Hopefully, there's lots of food value. It's yeah, you win some, you lose some. So this will be a quick one. So I'm gonna take a pause here. I will take a picture of it for posterity, and then figure out which plant needs some watering, and I'll be back with my next beer. So I'm got my next beer. It's also a Schneider. This is a Schneider Weisse, the Hopfen Weisse, brewed in collaboration with Brooklyn Brewing. And again, I don't know the year. There is not a year on the bottle. If there was, there's no back label. So that's probably where the date was. I figured there must be a. It's in English, so there should be a back label. Should have been a back label with the government warnings, which I don't see. So this is 8.2%, so it's a bit stronger. And I think it's from about 2010, but we'll find out. We'll find out if it's any good. So let's see. Pour it a little bit rough. It's got lots. This one's a lot more carbonated than the last one. Color, again, I'm not remembering. Color's what I seem to remember, but it's been a while since I've had this one. Getting oxidation in the nose, and a little bit of hops, and some breadiness, which you get with wheat beers. Well, this is in better shape than the previous one. I'm still not sure I'm going to want to drink a full half liter of it. There's definitely some hoppiness left. And I'm not. It's maybe a little bit cold, but not too cold. There's just kind of not a whole lot there. It doesn't drink like 8.5 or 8.2% alcohol, so I have to be careful on that. It's lost a lot of its. I remember this as, tasting like a wheat beer. The love child of a Weizenbock and an IPA. Not a lot of wheat character left. A little bit of phenolic, kind of on the end of the tongue, with clovey spiciness, and I say it's not bad. It's one that probably, if I had some friends, in the post times, the after times, 3 or 4 people could finish off the bottle each, having actually probably even 2 people could finish off the bottle. Well, I'm going to let it sit for a minute and then come back with further thoughts. So I'm back with my next beer, and it turns out this one probably doesn't quite belong. It's a Früh Kölsch, and I'll tell you why in a second. So this is still fairly carbonated. And I've got to be careful in pouring. I've been used to pouring all these beers that are totally flat from sitting around too long, so I've lost my pouring skills. Well, let me. Smells like a Früh. And pretty much tastes like I would expect. I'm not a big fan of the bottled version, but that's true of a lot of beers. I prefer the draft. Now, why I said this one maybe didn't belong, I grabbed the bottle, and they don't have a bottled by or best by, but they do have a date code. It's a 5-digit number, and that usually represents a 3-digit Julian date and a 2-digit year. And the date on mine was 10516. So I thought, okay, so that's the, and I realized, at first I just saw the 10 and thought, okay, that is from 2010, but then I realized, okay, the 516th day, that doesn't work. So this is actually from the 105th day of 2016. So this beer is only 5 years old, not even 5 years old. So it's really not in the same category as the other ones. And so as I would expect, it's not in perfect shape, but it's in much better shape than the other ones. And I haven't had a Früh in a while, so I will enjoy this one. Not much else to say. We didn't, for a long time, the only Kölsch we got regularly here in Los Angeles was the Reisdorf, which is not a bad one, but not my favorite, and what we got wasn't really fresh. And I remember when these first saw them here, and I bought, I guess, a couple of bottles and drank one, and the other one got put in the back. Sorry to disappoint you. I was all excited that this was an old one, but it's fresh, so it's kind of almost fresh compared to 1999. So it's a little, a little bit off topic. But I will enjoy it, and I'm going to take a pause here for a minute, let it warm up a bit, take a picture, and I'll be back with thoughts. Okay, I'm back with my 2016 Früh Kölsch. Only 5 years old, a little over 5 years old, so not really in the same category as the other ones. It is oxidized, and it suffers from it. I'll probably finish this Stanga. I may not finish the bottle. Just not you know, at some point the oxidation overpowers everything else and it's not enjoyable. I got a gazillion Kölsch stories to tell, or cologne stories. But one of my favorites, not to take up the whole video. There was a group of us in our regular fall beer trip, and we were at Früh, the Stammhaus by the dome, by the cathedral, and in one of the back rooms there's a big round table, and there were maybe 8 of us, and so that's a place where we like to sit. We could kind of all sit together, and so we had this round table, and we made this symbol that we wanted, beers all around. And the waiter, the Kubis, as they call him, came, and if you've been to Cologne, they have this unusual tray with a handle, and it's got slots for the glasses, and it's got an outer slot and then an inner slot. Holds a little bit fewer. And I forget how much the one outside holds, but that was at least 8. So he comes along and he, puts a beer down in front of me, and then sort of goes around the table, puts a beer in front of everybody. And then he gets back to me, and he picks up my beer and puts it in his tray, and he picks up the next guy's beer and puts it in the tray and says, "You had long enough, Now, he was just joking, and he put the beers back. But it was just funny, okay, it's a little glass, you guys had enough time. But that is one of the waiters in Cologne are known, and in Dusseldorf, are known for being gruff and unfriendly, but and there are some that are that way. For a lot of them, it's just sort of a bit of a show. It's the shtick, so to speak, and they can be quite friendly if you're friendly back to them. We had another case where this wasn't us, but we were next to another table, and this was back in the day when you could smoke, and I think, as I remember, there were 2 smaller tables pushed together in this group, and one of the people asked if he could have another ashtray, and the waiter just kind of looked at him and says, "No, one's enough. Only 2 of you are smoking." So anyway, always have a good time in Cologne. I like the beer better in Dusseldorf, as those of you who know me, but if Dusseldorf wasn't so nearby, I'd have a good time in Cologne as well. And I do have a good time in Cologne. And there's big discussions on what's my favorite Kölsch, and it's kind of the last one I had often. I like Früh for the location. It's just a marvelous place, and good food. Though they all have good food. Beer wise, I sort of vary. In a long time ago, it was very much Malzmühle, the Mühlen Kölsch, but they seem to have. They were much maltier and a bit darker than the other ones. It was almost golden rather than yellow, and deep gold. And they seem to have, in recent years, reverted a little bit back towards the mean, and they're not all that much different from the other breweries in town. And the other one I like is Pfeffken. I was a little disappointed when their tap room in the Altstadt no longer carried their beers, and that's another whole story for another time. The Altstadt tap room was owned by one brother, and the brewery is owned by another, and they had a falling out. And the brewer who owned the tap room, the brother who owned the tap room, opened his own brewery, started selling his own beer, but his brewery was outside the limits of when you can call it a Kölsch. So this is just a beer. It's a Pfaffen beer, but it's also sometimes very good as well. But anyway, that's enough. I'm going to finish this off, and then we're going to take a bit of a turn. All the beers so far have been top fermented, in other words, ales. And the ones I have left are, I believe, all bottom fermented, more traditional German lagers. And we'll see how they also normally don't age all that well. So we'll see how these turn out. So hope you're enjoying this, and I'll be back in a minute.